Yo, and hello, everybody. Mike here, baseball collector, and welcome to your 2024 election headquarters. And no, I'm not talking about that election, but we did get some news today about who the 8 people are going to be on the Classic Era Committee ballot for the Hall of Fame induction that's going to take place next summer in Cooperstown. And there are some interesting names on there, and I want to go through them a little bit. But I don't want to do that by myself. That's not nearly as much fun. And you don't want to just hear from me. So I want to bring on a guy that I think is incredibly underrated on YouTube. It's kind of self-inflicted, though, because I wish this guy would do a lot more videos because his collection is incredible. He has a great feel for Hall of Famers, along with a bunch of other guys. But it is Chris, not from Missouri. It's Chris from Kentucky, Hall of Fame pullers. Chris, how you doing?
Doing really well. How are you, Mike?
I'm good. Are you ready to give everybody all the election predictions that they've been waiting for this whole cycle?
I mean, you and me already know all the answers between the two of us, and that's you knowing all of them. I'm just here. I'm the only person who said yes, I guess. So.
No, you're the only person I asked, truthfully, and I want to I love your Hall of Fame collection, your autograph collection. I'm going to let you talk about that a lot in terms of autographs. I want to go through the process first so that anybody out there that doesn't understand what's happening right now, what names were released today and when this is all going to happen. You and I can each go through, talk about the candidates. And so let me share this screen. This is just on the Baseball Hall of Fame website right there. And right now, this year, we have the Classic Baseball Era. And it says right here, 7 players and 1 manager comprise the 8-name Classic Baseball Era Committee ballot, which features player, manager, umpires, and executive candidates whose primary contribution to the game came prior to 1980. And we will find out if any of these guys get elected to the Hall of Fame on Sunday, December 8th at 6:30. You can watch that on MLB Tonight. So let's go through the candidates, and they are listed here in alphabetical order. We've got Dick Allen. What are your thoughts about Dick Allen?
I mean, tremendous player, home run hitter. Probably a lot of controversy surrounding some of his actions, but I think penultimately was a good clubhouse guy, is well liked by other Hall of Famers and former teammates. I think the great things about his career are, the power he showed. He had just a tremendous amount of power. Some of that Frank Howard power, that type stuff. I think some of the things that work against him are he really didn't have the opportunity to go to the postseason, maybe once, I think, in his career. And like I said, there were a lot of things he was dealing with on and off the field that may have stymied his Hall of Fame career. But
that's kind of a theme for a lot of these guys. The on and off the field controversies is maybe a strange word, but issues that they had to deal with, right? Most of it self-inflicted, but Dick Allen has been on this ballot multiple times in other forms of the Veterans Committee. It seems like the Hall of Fame is good at changing things. They like change. They change how they do this all the time. And he's been on it before and not made it. What do you think the resistance is to Dick Allen being in the Hall of Fame?
Well, I think, I did check, and with the writers, he really he peaked. What was it? Did he ever even make 30%? Maybe, no, 18.9% in his last writer's ballot, which is, you never know. Guys are going up against different levels of competition. But the last 2 times he's been considered by the Veterans Committee, he's been within a vote of getting on. So he certainly has the support. I think he probably, for guys like you and me, you're a little bit older than me. I didn't get a chance to watch Dick Allen play. I would say that he was a very similar type player to maybe Albert Bell. Little controversial himself, but also a good home run hitter. And a lot of gray area as to whether or not Albert Bell belongs in the Hall of Fame. Ultimately, I think he might get there. But Dick Allen is perceived, I think, as someone who quit on his teammates. He just walked off. He walked off the job a couple times. I think I read that his last career game, he was with the Oakland Athletics. He just left after a doubleheader in I want to say it was in the month of June, and he had done the same thing earlier on in his career. So I think there's some negative perceptions about how he handled things. But like I said, if you read about some of his Hall of Fame teammates, guys like Mike Schmidt and Goose Gossage, they rave about him. So it ultimately all comes down to who is on this Veterans Committee, I would say.
Well, much like the choice America has tomorrow, I believe in looking at what happened on the field and personality. We're not for the Hall of Fame for baseball. We're not trying to elect some moral exemplar of perfection, and because it just doesn't exist. And so we need to. I look at Dick Allen and I say, golly, what a great career. And we'll get to who we think should be in here in a minute. We'll keep going through the candidates.
Quick trivia. Do you know who Dick Allen was once traded for?
I'm trying to think the teams he was with. No, I can't think of it, but I bet you'll tell me.
He was involved in the Kurt Flood trade, for one. That's when he went from Philadelphia to St. Louis. But he was also traded for another guy on this list. He was once traded for Tommy John.
Okay. All right. Well, let's move on to Ken Boyer. It says here he played 15 seasons as a third baseman with the Cardinals, Mets, White Sox, and Dodgers, earning 11 All-Star Game selections, which is impressive out of 15 seasons. Won the 64 National League Most Valuable Player and helped the Cardinals to a World Series victory. So, yeah, Ken Boyer is one of those. I never thought of him as a Hall of Famer, but when I go and all these guys, I went today and looked at all their stats and stuff, and I was pretty impressed, actually. What do you think?
Solid player. I'm a little biased. My grandfather and father were big time Cardinals fans in Missouri, and so they both loved his career. I think he was overshadowed a little bit by some of those pitchers, Musial and others. But I mean, he may be more of, well, I don't want to call him like a Scott Rowland type, but a very good player. And I think he managed for a while. Did he manage?
I don't know.
Who knows? For some reason, I thought he had. But
if only we had a way to look up anything we wanted to about baseball.
Yeah. This is a really tough ballot for him. This is a really good ballot, by the way. I think.
Yeah. Overall, they did a good job. There's some glaring misses here in terms of the ballot, which I'll get to. By the way, the ballot could have had up to 10, just so everybody knows. Apparently 8 were selected by a group of writers is who selected the 8 people that are on the list. We don't spend a lot of time on Ken Boyer, but he's on the ballot. We got not Josh Donaldson. He's not on the ballot. John Donaldson he pitched in the Negro Leagues and pre-Negro Leagues for more than 30 years, earning a reputation as one of the best pitchers in the game. Also played the outfield and managing. Donaldson helped establish the barnstorming business model that was profitable for black teams for decades. So I wish I could tell you I knew a lot about John Donaldson and his career. I don't. So to me, when the Negro League players are highlighted on a list like this, I tend to trust that they were put on here for a reason, if that makes sense. And so I'm not a very informed voter in terms of John Donaldson.
Yeah, you and me both. When I first saw the ballot, I honestly didn't know who John Donaldson was. I had to go back and look. I saw he played for a ton of teams. And I think had over 400 wins, maybe over 5,000 strikeouts. of course, a lot of those were, I think they even denotes in the biography there, pre-Negro League statistics. So I don't know that he's officially credited with that many wins and strikeouts. I think everything I found just showed from when he played for the Monarchs. But I agree with you. I mean, they put him on there for a reason, and they could have put 10 people. So I would guess that they know a little bit more than we do about him.
All right, next up, Steve Garvey. Wow, he's been on the ballot how many times now? Multiple?
A lot. He's on the ballot tomorrow in California, as a matter of fact, in the United States Senate race.
That's a good point.
He just likes ballots.
He may not be a senator tomorrow, but he could be a Hall of Famer in a month on December 8th. The case for Steve Garvey is tired to me. I get why people think he should be a Hall of Famer. I don't know. I'm kind of on the fence about Steve Garvey. I think he was a very good player.
It's a tremendous. He had a good career. Played on some really good Dodger teams. I mean, he was a great player. A couple NLCS MVPs. Almost batted close to 300 for his career. Almost 2,600 hits. But not a ton of power. I mean, a Hall of Fame, or I say a Hall of Great type player for me personally. I'll say this: I have a lot of Hall of Fame autographs and prospective autographs. I don't have a Steve Garvey autograph. That tells you where I think his chances are.
Fair enough. Moving on, we got a couple more. Vic Harris. This is another Negro Leaguer, and it says Vic Harris played 18 seasons in the Negro Leagues, primarily as a left fielder for the legendary Homestead Grades. He compiled a .303 career batting average and was well known as one of the most aggressive base runners in the Negro National League. Harris also managed the Grays for 11 seasons, winning 7 Negro League pennants and the 1948 World Series. So I've heard Vic Harris talked about a lot in past committee discussions. And what I think is interesting about guys like this, guys like Lou Piniella, Joe Torre, I don't think you can separate the player and the managerial career. I think you have to combine them as a complete body of work. And to me, Vic Harris screams awesomeness and all those. He was a great player and a great manager. That should actually pump up your candidacy. He wasn't one or the other. He was both and excelled at both. That should matter to me.
I agree. I noticed, in particular, the way that the Hall of Fame had them listed with 7 players and 1 manager, and I assume it's Vic Harris that they're counting as the manager. I certainly don't know a lot about Vic Harris, but hitting .303 has got to be a stellar career. Taking a team to the pennant 7 times. With a championship is a stellar managerial career. It is pretty interesting, though. Vic Harris is someone I have heard about before. I think I've heard Frank talk about him. And I think that those accolades right there, I mean, even though I don't know a lot about him, certainly seem pretty deserving. I'm a little perplexed why he wasn't on the managerial committee last year as a manager contributor, just because his managerial stats alone, he would fit with those guys. So that would be interesting to find out why he wasn't there last year. And that I don't know if that will count against him with this committee or not. But I think you're right about the combined aspects of player and manager.
It's impressive to me, and I long thought, the Negro Leagues have been so underrepresented in the Hall of Fame. They're doing a good job of including these players and recognizing the historical impact that they had. And a guy like Vic Harris, I would be thrilled to death if a guy like that got in. Again, I wish I knew as much about him as I do the other players, but hopefully what I hope these types of lists will do is, just like you did on John Donaldson, is maybe people will go learn about these and learn more than just the little, blurb that's here on the Hall of Fame website, and try to really understand these players' impact on baseball, right?
Oh, absolutely.
So, all right. After Vic Harris, we've got Mr. Surgery. Tommy John pitched 26 seasons with the Indians, White Sox, Dodgers, Yankees, Angels, A's, finishing his career after the 89 season. Won 288 games, 3.34 ERA, four-time All-Star, three of which I find interesting, came after his groundbreaking elbow surgery, and he won a couple of other awards. Tommy John just screams compiler to me.
Oh, absolutely. I think he once finished second in the Cy Young Award winning race. I think he finished in 1977 second.
He's the Jamie Moyer before Jamie Moyer, or he was Jamie Moyer before there was a Jamie Moyer, right?
Oh, for sure. I mean, think about this: in a season of broadcast, radio broadcast, TV, whatever, which baseball player's name do you think gets mentioned the most?
Has to be Tommy John.
I bet. I mean, it may be Shohei, it may be Trout, but Tommy John has got to be up there because 35% thereabouts of pitchers pitching the major leagues have had that surgery. I mean, that is, 1 in 3 pitchers, that is one guy on every team at least, wouldn't be pitching if it weren't for, it's really Dr. Job's surgery. If Tommy John didn't have the courage to have that surgery and then come back and had a stellar career after it.
Well, you could say, people say, oh, we should put Tommy John in just because of the surgery. No, then put Frank Jobe in. Don't, he's the one that did it. The doctor that came up with it and performed it. Granted, Tommy John, like you said, lots of courage to be willing to go through it. But his career was over either way. Like either he gets it and comes back or he's done. So I think it was I don't know. Just the surgery alone is not enough for me to put someone in the Hall of Fame. We got two more. You can see him here, but we're going to go. Dave Parker, 290 average, 19 major league seasons, 6 teams. He won a couple of championships, 78 NL MVP, 7 All-Star games, 3 Gold Gloves, and a cannon for a right arm or for a right fielder. He's been on the ballot again multiple times already, never gotten the votes. What's different now?
And he was a dude. And he is, I'm a Rangers fan, but I couldn't wear my Rangers cap. I knew Mike would have his on, so I had to throw some support behind Dave Parker, the Cobra. I think, he is the quintessential big-armed right fielder, power bat, stellar career, probably made some poor choices in his career as it relates to drugs, in particular illegal drugs, but had some injuries and stuff like that slowed him down. He would be, I think, a guy that probably would have benefited from the DH in the National League a lot earlier had it been a possibility for him. And a guy whose career was extended by the DH in the American League later in his career. But his defense, his arm was great. He made a ton of errors, a ton of throwing errors. But nevertheless, he is a guy that I look at really the pillar of one championship in 1979, right after he won an MVP. And he had another one, at the end of his career in Oakland. But just a dominant player, maybe overshadowed a little bit playing with Pops and some of those guys. But I just think his numbers, I know he gets dinged. He's only got, a little over 2,700 hits, a little over 339 home runs, I think. I gotta check my cheat sheet. Had almost 1,500 RBIs. And I'm one of those guys that I like to count postseason home runs. Like when Fred McGriff would have over 500 home runs if you included his postseason home runs. Dave Parker would have over 1,500 RBIs if you included his postseason RBIs. So 7-time All-Star, 3-time Gold Glover, 3-time Silver Slugger. I mean, the guy would swing a sledgehammer on the on deck circle. I mean, he should go in the Hall of Fame for that alone.
All right, and our last candidate on the list on the ballot this year is Louis Tiant. Sadly, Tiant died October 8th, I think it was. And he won 20 games 4 times, played for 19 years for a plethora of teams, 229 wins, 330 ERA, 3 All-Star games. You know, great pitcher, right? I don't know, though. Is it enough? I don't know.
Big personality. And, you know, for people who didn't see him, which I was alive while he was playing, but I certainly didn't get to appreciate him. When he came and developed that, what I would call it the Johnny Cueto, that's probably what my generation would call it, on the mound. I think that just gave him a little something that other people didn't have, a little more pizzazz. Terrific career. I think one of the things I read about him when he passed away was that he didn't want people to put him into the Hall of Fame after he had passed away. It'll be interesting to see, you know, how he's perceived by these Veterans Committee voters. But a really good career. I think he's kind of, for me, I would put him in the Hall of Fame. I would vote for him. If I was on this committee and obviously only had a limited number of votes, he probably wouldn't get my vote. But he's someone that I could see why people would argue that he belongs.
So we've got in these 8 players. Go through them again because I want to touch on a couple things. I want to talk about their card history really quick, and then I'll have you touch real quick on availability of autographs and expense of, you know, is it expensive, cheap, plenty of them out there, not a lot of them. We'll start with Dick Allen. His cardboard career ran from his rookie as 1964 tops, and it goes all the way until 1976. When I did this, Chris, I put everybody's cards, and I thought, okay, all these guys fit in, except for the Negro League guys, which there aren't any cards of them, kind of thing. The rest of them all fit into my 4-decade set, and I'm like, good grief! If they're not all going to get in, but if they did, there's 108 cards just in their base tops runs that I would have to go get, or want to. It's not even have to. I'd want to go get them because they are now Hall of Famers, and that's a primary focus of my collection. I'd also want to have autographs of them and other things, right, that fit into different projects that are Hall of Fame related. And it got me excited. People ask me all the time, do you get depressed because you're so close and now you have to add all these cards? And the answer is no. I get excited because I think if people think that this person is a Hall of Famer, that's someone I want to add to my collection, not, oh, darn it, I've got to go buy all these great cards now. And some people criticize me, oh, so it takes, someone getting in the Hall of Fame for you to want to collect them. And like, dude, you got to draw a line somewhere. That's where I kind of say, look, I can't collect everybody. Well, if you like them, why wouldn't you have already bought their cards or what? Again, you can't buy everything. You can't own everything. And so
we think we can.
We think we can. And so I have a reverence, right or wrong, for who gets enshrined in the Hall of Fame. It matters to me. It may not matter to everyone out there. There are people that say, oh, if no Hall of Fame without, Bonds and Clemens is terrible, or there's people that keep them all out, or the Hall of Fame's already too watered down. You get all these extremes about the Hall of Fame and all these severe criticisms of it one way or the other. I choose to simply say, look, there's a process and certain people get in. It's still the most exclusive Hall of Fame of all the sports. It's not, to me personally, I do not believe it's watered down. But I look at opportunities like, to get Dick Allen cards as great. Luckily, I already have his rookie. I don't have many other Dick Allen cards. And here's another thing, Chris, and I'll share this with everybody, is some people would be inclined or think that, hey, I certainly went and looked today. I'm not going to lie. I went to eBay and I looked all these guys up and a bunch of different cards. And hey, should I start buying some of these cards now? And then when I did the math of 108 cards and what those would cost me in total, and I thought, well, if I wait, they'll be more expensive. That's absolutely true. But not all 6 or 8 are going to get in. Maybe 2 of them, maybe, right? 1, 2, at the most 3. It would shock me if 3 got in.
It almost have to be collusion.
That's right. They would have to collude to vote properly to get the 75% of the vote that each player needs to get elected. And so I'll still pay less, even at a higher inflated prices on 2 of the players, let's say, than buying all of them cheaper now. Does that make, like, the cumulative cost will be significantly less on waiting and paying a little bit more once they're actually elected and chosen for the Hall of Fame.
Well, and I think you have to consider also the cost of what it would cost to get those cards graded. I mean, you probably have all those cards already.
I do.
Well, you could just send them in and get them graded. Of course, it's not as fun. The hunt is not as fun that way. But
yeah, Dick Allen autographs. I have 1 or 2 maybe in my collection. Not an easy or cheap autograph, by the way. What do you think about his autograph?
Well, there is what his autograph looks like.
Okay.
This was a private signing towards the end of his life. That's the only one I've got. They're pretty hard to find on card, and they're generally going to be in the $200 to $300 range, just depending on the condition of the autograph. I'll show it again.
Yeah, just
that is. Let's see if I can get it without the light.
All right.
That's the only one I got.
Okay.
It's got the airbrushed. He's really wearing a Phillies hat. It's airbrushed to make him look like a Cardinals hat. But,
well, I'll move a little faster on these guys. I spent too much time on Dick Allen, I'm realizing. Ken Boyer, card history, rookies 1955. His final card is 1969 tops. I have several Ken Boyer autographs just over the years, and I collect MVPs. So that's one of the reasons I have his. Do you have a Ken Boyer?
I do not have a Ken Boyer, and they're not super easy to acquire. I don't feel like you might disagree, but at least on card, they're really hard to find.
Yeah, you can find them, like you said, on card, more difficult, but you can definitely find them. John Donaldson, no cards that I know of, but I didn't really look. So truthfully, I can't say that definitively. And we would need Frank on here to tell us about his autograph, probably, unless you've done some research.
There was a John Donaldson who played for the Texas Rangers in the 70s, whose autograph is readily available on eBay for less than $10, but it's not the same John Donaldson. Yeah.
Steve Garvey has signed forever. He's a prominent signer, easy to find. His cardboard career runs 1971 through 1987. Tops is his last card on the Padres. He actually has an 88 score, ironically, but 87 tops is his last tops card. But you have probably multiple Steve Garveys, yes?
Well, interestingly enough, I don't have a single Steve Garvey.
You don't have any.
He's always on the signing circuit. He signs, I think, maybe even through Pass Pros through the mail. So he's fairly easy to acquire right now. That may change if he's elected, both in the Hall and into the United States Senate.
Right. Vic Harris. Again, I have very little knowledge. We'll stick with the guys that we know more about. How about that?
That sounds like a Frank question for Vic Harris. Frank or Bill question.
Tommy John, cardboard career, 1964 all the way to 1989. 64 is his rookie. he has 26 Topps cards, which will be, if he gets elected, I'm going to have a challenge there in a good way challenge, because that'll be but that runs over so many eras of cardboard. It's actually fantastic, to imagine acquiring all of those cards. It just sounds like fun to me personally.
Oh, absolutely. And he, as an autograph collector, particularly a Topps autograph collector, he's signed recently for the Signature Series through Topps Archives. You can see, he got really sick in 2020 with COVID and then had some lasting effects. His signature's gotten very shaky. And I actually have purchased his signed rookie. It's on the way, but I've got 20 of his Topps cards signed out of 26. So need a few more. Unlike I think some of your cards, I think autographs become unless they become more readily available, become a little more expensive once someone gets put into the Hall of Fame.
No doubt that's true. Parker, different case. His rookie is 1974, and his cards run through 91 Topps. So he's also bridging several eras, all through the junk wax era and of the late 80s. He has cards everywhere, and easy autograph to get. There's tons of them out there.
And that is his rookie. Now I'm going to show that's his rookie, which I got 2020. And I got to figure out, this is one that I actually just got a few weeks ago. And it's really hard to tell because of the lighting. His signature, he's got Parkinson's. So his signature has gotten really rough as of late. But same thing with him. I've just got, these are all signed Dave Parker's. I've got his full Topps run and some Diamond Kings and some other stuff like that I'll have to show off someday when I finally make videos.
Quick plug. Just go watch Chris's old videos on his channel, Hall of Fame Pullers. There is player runs, signed player runs. I mean, it is insanely impressive. How many player era Hall of Fame Topps cards do you have, or signed cards do you have?
Well, there's 2,447 Topps cards of Hall of Famers. And that includes obscure guys like Warren Giles and things of that nature. And I've got 58% of them. So I've got over 1420 of the player signed cards. It's a little crazy. It's a problem. Yeah.
I thought I had a lot. No, you do. Louis Tiant, cardboard career 1965 is his rookie. It's a great looking rookie card all the way through 1983. I think he's pictured with the Angels on his last Topps card. So, yeah, I think an easy autograph, if I remember right.
He was a great signer through the mail. I've got same thing. I've got, in hopes that he'll one day make the Hall of Fame, I've got his entire player run signed. Was a tremendous signer. $10 a card, I think. So there's a lot of Louis Tiant autographs out there. They may not all be on eBay, but there's a lot to be had.
Did I see some doubles in there that I could maybe pry from you? Or
there might be a few. I'm sure I can hook you up with some.
I'll need some because I don't have any Tiant Topps cards. I have several autographs just in general. But okay, let's finish up this conversation with ranking the candidates. If you were to say only one of these, and let's exclude the Negro League players because I don't feel like I can make a fair. One of the other six guys, if you could only pick one of the other six players to get in, who is, like, to you the most solid resume and candidate and most deserving to be in the Hall of Fame?
One of the things that I look at, and I think is just a human element, is you've got two guys who are at the later stages of life who had stellar careers in Tommy John and Dave Parker. I feel like that of these six guys, all of them, I would put them in if I could. So I'm going to start there. I think the reason I wore this Pirates hat, this one came from PNC Park, but really close to Three Rivers Stadium, is to throw some support behind Dave Parker. I think that would be the one guy that I would cast my ballot for, if you made me pick out of those six.
Who would be number two?
Richie Allen, Dick Allen.
Okay. So that's interesting. My number one would be Dick Allen, the one that I look at and say, yep, I would love to see him in the Hall of Fame. Number one to me is Dick Allen. And I compared earlier on Baseball Reference Dick Allen to Dave Parker. And although Dave Parker had several statistical categories where he had a better career, it was simply a matter of how much longer he played. But in terms of WAR, which I think that stuff, I think it matters to voters, right?
Absolutely.
Dick Allen's WAR is way higher than Dave Parker, and he played a lot less, right? So
Absolutely.
even if you took out the late seasons of Dave Parker where he had a negative WAR, if you erase those, Dick Allen still has a higher WAR. Now, you'd also have to take out all the stats that he accumulated in those years. But I think Parker had like 4 years of negative WAR that
man.
But if you took those out and those corresponding statistics, then Dick Allen looks like a much more favorable choice for the Hall of Fame. And so Allen would be my number one. Parker would actually be my number two.
Well, there we go. I mean, we've got it settled.
And then now, who do you think will get in? If you had to pick one of those six guys of who you think will get in versus who we think deserves to get in. Because, look, I would have put Lou Piniella in way over Jim Leland last cycle, but they didn't ask me, so I didn't get a vote. Who do you think gets in?
Man, it's going to be really hard. It's going to be really interesting to see that human element when I talk about Tommy John and Dave Parker. It wouldn't shock me if Dick Allen, though, was the only person who got in, if anybody got in. When I see the ballot and I see these 8 guys, I'm like, somebody's got to get in. And I would be happy with 2, or I don't know if 3 is possible. But it's that human element. But I think Dick Allen has the best chance. I'd be intrigued to see, again, I really want to see who that committee is made up of. Because if you've got some guys, if you've got a Goose Gossage or a Mike Schmidt on that committee, I'd say Dick Allen's getting in. And same thing for, Tommy John played with a lot of Hall of Famers. And Dave Parker, to some extent, played with some Hall of Famers. Some of them aren't with us anymore, but it'll be really interesting to see who's on that committee.
Yeah, we won't be for a couple of weeks, I don't think. To me, it's I think who I think is going to get in. I think one of the 2 Negro League guys is going to get in, and then I think that Dave Parker's going to get in because of the sentimentality factor. That, look, these are still human beings voting for this, and they know his situation, and they know his post-career story of regrets. He's done several documentaries about, man, I wish I would have just been a better person for a while in my life when I made some bad choices. And you can't discount that sentimentality part of it. And I think that will get to some people that he is late in life and dealing with Parkinson's and some other things that, I wish that didn't, and I don't know that I want to take that out of the process. That would be, we are human beings. Like, I don't want to make it some robotic system that determines these things, because I'm a big believer in the eye test too, right? Which is very subjective. And so I think Parker gets in, and I think one of the 2 Negro League representatives gets in. So it'll be fun either way. And Chris, thanks for coming on with me to kind of talk through this. Please, guys, down below, put down who you think and why. And we didn't even talk about the fact that Thurman Munson wasn't on this ballot, which surprised the heck out of me, truthfully. And he would be in that category of pre-1980. I mean, he died in 79. So it's surprising to me, but who's on the ballot is who's on the ballot. So those are the choices we have. We may not like the choices we have like tomorrow, but that's the choices we have. Man, I'm tying this into this season pretty well.
Mike's like, all right, everybody go out and vote tomorrow and vote down here in the comments.
Right. And don't forget, go check out Chris's channel, Hall of Fame Pullers. This may inspire him, if you guys go watch some of his videos and subscribe to his channel, that he may, get off the couch and stop being lazy and show some more of his amazing collection. So
trying to get out of the office is really what it is.
Right.
Well, yeah, I just need
for being here. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it very much.
We'll wait until December 8th and know the results at 6:30 p.m. Eastern on MLB Network. So, guys, check it out. We'll talk to you guys later. Have a good one and keep collecting.